Hello to all the viewers tuning in to the Mr. Twilight channel. Welcome to another episode of the Nighttime Horror Stories series. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? A gaze from afar, a shadowy figure outside your window, or quiet footsteps behind you? The feeling of being followed is one of the most terrifying experiences anyone could ever face. Today, I'll be sharing 3 true stories of people who encountered this very nightmare. Now, make sure your heart is strong enough and turn off the lights as we begin these haunting tales. Story 1. The figure at the window. I woke up in the middle of the night, gripped by panic. My heart pounded so loudly. I could hear it thudding in my chest. Then my eyes fixed on the window directly across from my bed. Someone was standing there, right outside, silent. Still, I couldn't make out the face clearly, but 2 pale, cold eyes stared straight at me. I held my breath. My body froze. I reached blindly in the dark, feeling around for my phone. But the moment I turned my face, just for a second, and looked back, it was gone. The person who shared this story with me was Emily, a young woman living alone in a quiet suburb of Seattle. Her apartment sat at the end of a lonely road, surrounded by just a few scattered houses. When she first moved in, she thought the place would be peaceful, a perfect fit for her remote work. But as she said, everything started with that window. About 2 weeks in, whenever she worked late or came back from the grocery store, Emily always felt like someone was watching her. She often turned around while walking, but saw nothing but darkness. What disturbed her most was the bedroom window, which faced a small thicket of bushes. One time, she jumped in fright. She thought she saw a face flicker through the leaves. Then one night, while brushing her teeth, Emily noticed something flash in the bathroom mirror. A faint silhouette by the window. When she turned to check, nothing was there, but she couldn't sleep at all that night. One morning, she opened her window and noticed strange smudges on the glass, like someone had placed their hands there. Strangely, her apartment was on the ground floor. Her unease deepened as more unexplainable things started happening. Each night, even though she always pulled the curtains shut, she would wake to find them partly drawn open. Small items in the apartment appeared to move, like someone had touched them. At first, she thought she might be sleepwalking, but then, one night, Emily decided to set a simple trap. She placed a small paper cup directly beneath the window. If someone opened it from outside, the cup would fall. The next morning, the cup lay on the ground, upside down, a meter away from where she'd placed it. Everything reached its peak one night as Emily was getting ready for bed. She moved to pull the curtains closed, then saw something outside, a piece of paper, handwritten. Hands trembling, she opened the window, scrawled on it in shaky, uneven writing. "Tonight, I'm coming in." Emily dropped the note in shock. She rushed to lock every door and window, pushed furniture in front of the entrances, and immediately called the police. They arrived within 15 minutes. After inspecting the area, they discovered footprints in the soft soil, leading from the front gate straight to her bedroom window. But what chilled her to the bone was what they found next. The police retrieved security footage from a nearby neighbor's camera. The video showed a tall man in a black coat, hood pulled low, standing silently at Emily's window. He stood there for 4 minutes. Each time a car passed, he ducked into the shadows, then returned. Still watching, Emily broke down crying as she watched the footage. An investigation followed, but after a week, authorities still couldn't identify the man. No suspicious license plates appeared on any local cameras. And then came the most disturbing discovery. According to building records, a previous tenant had also reported being stalked through that same bedroom window. Just a year earlier, the case was never resolved. Emily moved out immediately. Even after relocating to a different area, sleep never came easily again. I always feel like, once night falls, someone is still watching me through the window. She told me the last time we spoke. No matter where I go, he always finds me. Story 2. The Stalker on the Empty Road. The night air was cold, but I was drenched in sweat. Behind me, the sound of footsteps pounded louder and closer, mixed with the whistling of wind through leafless trees. I turned. He was still there, just a few dozen steps away, glaring at me like I was the last prey left in the forest. I sped up. He sped up too. I veered down a shortcut by the side of the park. Narrow dirt path between two decrepit fences, a place I'd never dared enter at night. But now I had no choice. I was being hunted. The man who shared this terrifying experience is Leon, 26, living alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of San Diego. He works an office job and goes for nightly runs to relieve stress. His usual route loops around a park and winds back through a sparsely populated residential area. Leon said that night began like any other. But just minutes after leaving home, unease crept in. Strange sensation that someone was staring at his back. At first, he brushed it off as paranoia. But as he rounded the third corner near an abandoned ball field, Leon heard footsteps. Heavy, uneven, not the kind you hear from another jogger. He stopped and bent down, pretending to tie his shoe while glancing behind. A man wearing a dark coat, who'd pulled low, nearly hiding his face. He was walking fast, eyes not on the path, but locked on Leon. Probably just someone walking. Leon tried to reassure himself. But when he turned left to head toward the residential streets, the man turned too. That's when instinct kicked in. There was no more doubt. He was being followed. Leon broke into a full sprint, but the footsteps behind him didn't fade. They grew louder, closer. He was running too, Leon recalled, fear still flickering in his eyes, even nearly a year later. I felt like an animal trapped in a forest with no way out. He zigzagged through alleys, a deserted playground, and an empty parking lot with no lights, trying to lose the stranger. Then, just as he reached the first streetlight after 10 frantic minutes, he heard the voice. Low, cold, like stone scraping against stone. Why run? I'll find you anyway. Leon's hands shook. He grabbed his phone and called his best friend Kyle, who lived just a few blocks away. Kyle picked up, only to hear Leon scream, "Come get me! Someone's chasing me!" Leon sprinted toward the main road, heart racing, head whipping back and forth. The man was still behind him. But what terrified him most wasn't the pursuit. It was the man's pace. I couldn't understand it. Leon later said, it was like he didn't even need to run, and yet he was getting closer by. At last, Leon spotted Kyle's headlights and bolted toward the car like a drowning man grasping for a life raft. Kyle flung the door open and Leon dove in, slamming it shut and locking it instantly. Kyle looked back, but saw no one. The police swept the area Leon described. No suspicious individuals, no vehicles or license plates. No camera caught anything unusual. Leon returned home in the early morning, relieved, thinking the nightmare was finally over. But the nightmare was only beginning. The next morning, Leon discovered an unfamiliar footprint on the concrete just outside his front door. Oddly, his home was inside a gated complex. No one could have entered without a key. The following day, while working from home, Leon felt suddenly suffocated. He walked to the window, pulled back the curtain, and froze. Tucked beneath the flower pot outside his window was a small piece of paper. Handwritten, crooked letters. "Told you, I'll find you." The police came again. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints. They assumed it was a cruel prank, maybe someone who knew Leon lived alone. But Leon was convinced. It was him, the man from that night. Leon's lifestyle changed drastically. He isolated himself, installed security cameras around his home, changed all the locks. Yet every night, the feeling remained. The sense that something moved just beyond the window, just beyond reach, that the man was still there. And then came the final blow. One night, Leon reviewed his security footage. In the far distance, just beyond the range of the floodlights, stood a figure, motionless for hours. No face, no features, just a blurred silhouette. But somehow it was looking straight into the lens. Story 3. The stranger in the apartment across. I shut the door behind me, tossed my bag onto the couch, and turned on the living room lights. The apartment was quiet, just the gentle hum of the heater. But as I stepped toward the window to draw the curtains, I froze. Someone was staring at me from across the street. In the building opposite mine, a man stood pressed against the glass of his window. Pale face, unblinking eyes, locked onto me. The kind of stare that strips the breath from your chest. I yanked the curtains shut so fast I nearly knocked a flower pot off the windowsill. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape. But even with the curtains closed, I could feel it. That he was still there, still waiting, still watching. The person behind this chilling story is Sarah, a 29-year-old editor living in a high-rise apartment in downtown New York. She often works from home. Her unit is on the 14th floor, directly facing another building. Specifically, an apartment that always appeared empty, or at least she thought it was. At first, Sarah only sensed something strange, an eerie awareness every time she returned home. That feeling of being watched. But each time she looked out, there was no one. The apartment across was always dark, curtains drawn tight, until one cold winter evening, after a late night at work, she flipped on the lights in her living room and saw him for the first time. A man, pressed against the glass in the unit opposite hers, staring, never moving, just watching. One day, Sarah decided to use binoculars to get a clearer look. That's when she saw it. He was smiling, a twisted, crooked grin that sent shivers down her spine. And then she heard it, a soft tapping sound coming from her own window, as if someone or something was gently knocking from the outside. A few weeks later, Sarah's unease turned into full-blown horror. She began receiving handwritten letters, no return address, no postage. Each morning, they appeared under her front door. The handwriting was shaky and uneven, as if scrawled by a trembling hand. "I'm always watching you. Stop closing the curtains. We'll be together soon. You look so beautiful when you sleep." The last note shattered her. The night before, she had accidentally fallen asleep on the sofa, curtains half blown open by the breeze, window wide open. Someone had been watching her. Sarah called the police immediately. Officers went to the apartment across from hers. the one where she had seen the pale man. But no one answered the door. The building management confirmed something chilling: the unit had been vacant for over a year. Still, the police broke in to investigate. What they found made Sarah nearly faint. Inside, there were signs of someone secretly living there: filthy blankets on the floor, rotting fast food containers, piles of trash. But the most disturbing find was a wooden board leaned against the window, covered in frantic, scribbled notes about Sarah. She read until 2 a.m. today. She cried. Why? She looked right at me. So beautiful. Bah. The stalker had been squatting illegally in the abandoned apartment, obsessively observing her every move, writing down her daily life as if she were a character in his private fantasy. Security in the building was immediately tightened. For a moment, Sarah believed the nightmare was over. But that night, around 2 a.m., the doorbell rang. She jolted upright. Her heart pounded. She crept to the peephole. No one was there. She turned back toward her room. The doorbell rang again, this time in a frenzy, fast and violent. Sarah ran to her bedroom, locked the door, and dialed 911. When the police arrived, they caught a man trying to pick her front door's lock with a homemade tool. It was him, the man she'd seen in the window. But his face was no longer pale. It was bloodied and bruised from struggling during the arrest. And even then, he didn't resist. He simply looked Sarah in the eye and whispered, "I know you won't keep those curtains closed forever. Don't forget to open them." He was charged with unlawful entry and harassment. But from that night on, Sarah never opened her living room curtains again. And that brings us to the end of our chilling journey through 3 terrifying tales of stalkers in the shadows. Do you still feel safe when you're alone in a dark room? Just remember, sometimes the darkness you thought was harmless may be the perfect hiding place for someone silently watching your every move. Have you ever experienced something similar? Don't hesitate to share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to support the channel. Mr. Twilight wishes you a good night, and we'll see you in the next horror story.